When I first heard about weird things happening at our cabin, I was maybe 7 years old. Weird things like chickens missing, chickens ending up on the cabin's roof headless, and also goats missing. Our cottage was located in the Appalachian region. There were acres of forest around, and I loved it there. No annoying car sounds, no disturbing bright lights, and lastly, no people. You could be completely alone without anyone bothering you. You could do anything you want without anyone telling you that you can't. It had one big house called the main house and a smaller building for storage. As a kid, I went there every summer. I wanted to spend even more time there than just a couple of weeks in the summer. But at that time, it was not possible. Living there was my biggest dream as a kid. As a teenager, I was, well, you could say disturbed, but I prefer unique. I enjoyed spending time in the forest, and the best time for being there was at night. I loved the forest, day and night. I loved animals living or dead, as death is a part of life you just have to accept. And that's why people thought that I was disturbed. I wanted to live in our cabin in the woods, all by myself. A couple of years later, I turned 18 and finally was able to move into that cottage. It was awesome. I could walk in the forest anytime I wanted. I had many pets and farm animals, chickens, goats, 2 cats, and a guard dog. I built a coop for the chickens and an enclosure for the goats. I loved it there until I started hearing these weird noises coming from outside. I kept hearing this scratching sound every night. My dog heard it too, and he usually barked a few times and it stopped. It was weird. There were no signs of scratching when I checked the porch out when it was morning. I was a tiny bit scared. Not much, because I loved the forest around my property, and I was quite sure that it was just some animal trying to come inside the house. One day, I was going to feed the animals, and then I saw them, scratch marks, on the garage building's main entrance. They were huge. I had seen scratch marks made by a bear before, but these were different. The door was maybe 2 meters high and 70 centimeters wide. There were 3 scratches made with what looked like a claw or something like that. They were 5 centimeters wide and went from the top of the door to the bottom. At first I thought it was a bear, or that's what I kept telling myself to not freak out. In reality, I knew it couldn't have been a bear. The next night, I couldn't fall asleep, and I started hearing scratching again. My heart was beating fast, and I started to sweat. I was terrified of what was scratching outside. I went and got my gun. I had a shotgun left behind by my grandfather, who loved to hunt. It was old, but I kept it clean and practiced shooting with it. I peeped through my curtains, and there was this dark, weird-looking figure standing by the door to my garage. I thought it was a bear and was relieved, but then it turned and looked in my direction. I got spooked and closed the curtains. What I saw couldn't have been a bear. It was tall, over 2 meters tall, standing like a human. It had glowing yellow eyes. That's all I could see before I got spooked. I went to bed shaking. I was grabbing and cuddling the shotgun. I was terrified. I felt like a baby scared of the woods cuddling a shotgun. What a pussy, I thought. This time my dog didn't bark. Weird. I remember waking up to the sun rising and shining through the curtains. It was morning. I thought, how could I fall asleep? All my animals could be gone, eaten by the thing outside. I quickly rose up, changed my clothes, and went outside to check the animals. All the chickens were there, and they were doing well. Then I checked the goats, and one was missing. They were screaming like hell. They were obviously spooked by something. Then I checked my dog. He was inside with me all night, but I had to check since he usually barks when the scratching is happening, and this time he didn't. There he was smiling and wagging his tail. He seemed normal. Later that day, I found a goat's head impaled by a pine branch. Rest of the goat's body was scattered around my yard, and I found its limbs severed and in different places. All the body parts were chewed. They were torn apart by something and eaten, although not completely. It was weird. I wanted to get the hell out of there. But that was my home, and it had been in my family for ages. I went inside and tried researching the creature online, but nothing. Then I remembered that there was this cabinet in the storage building that I was not allowed to look inside as a kid. My eyes widened as I realized that there must be something that could help. I went inside the storage, and there it was, the cabinet. It looked older than I remembered. The wood was rotting, and the cabinet doors almost fell when I opened it. It had these weird objects inside it. They looked like miniature goat heads, small and shrunken down. I got shivers going down my spine as I saw a box that had a goat's head symbol on it and some text, but it was so old that it had worn off. I opened the box, and there was a book and a notepad inside. I opened the book, and there was a picture of this creature that I'd been seeing. There was a text saying, "If you see a creature on this property, you must sacrifice one goat to it every week, on Saturdays at 2 a.m. If you don't, it will try to get inside. If it does get inside, it will take you." The name of the creature was worn off. "What the heck?" I said out loud, even though I was alone. I read more of the book, and there were many pictures of the creature in different places of the yard. There was this page on the creature, and it revealed that my family had been seeing the creature for many years. Its name was written in old letters, Kirek. I had thought it was a skinwalker, but I read many stories on skinwalkers, and it definitely was not a skinwalker. It was something else. The notepad contained instructions on how to do the sacrifice, and every sacrifice they had made from 1919 to 2001. That's when I moved in. I had not made any sacrifices, as I didn't know about it. I was terrified of making sacrifices to some creature who could easily kill me. I had this thought about, why didn't my family tell me about this? I wanted to get out, but I didn't because it was my family home. That day, very conveniently, happened to be Saturday. I had to make the sacrifice. The instructions were clear. I had to take one goat with me to the middle of the woods and leave it on a stone that was placed there by my great-great-grandfather. I had to wait there until the creature took it and went back to the darkness. I had to kneel before it. The instructions said that if you look at the creature taking the goat, it will take you as well. That night I was anxious and was pacing around my house. Clock was around 1:30 as I started preparing. I put on my boots, took my shotgun, and went outside. It was cold, and the wind was howling. It was raining a little, and I went to the goat pen and took one goat with me, the oldest goat I had. I said my goodbyes to the goat and told him that he was going to be okay. I don't know how I would handle the sacrifice, as this goat was mine for 3 years. I had it before I moved here, but it had to be done. Then I started walking towards the woods. I had seen this spot in the woods before, so I knew where to go. It was pitch black, and all I could hear was the rain and wind. It was so dark out there that I tripped a couple of times on some branches. I reached my destination. I placed the goat there and told him the last goodbyes. Then I took a few steps back, kneeled, and waited. I placed my head on the ground. After what felt like 3 hours, I heard stomping and tree branches snapping. It was distant, but coming closer. All of a sudden, it was so close that the ground was shaking, and the tree branches were falling around the area. I started to hear this heavy breathing. I started to shiver. I was petrified. I almost could not breathe. Then I felt a warm breath on my neck and heard Kirek sniffing me. Its breath smelled like rotting meat. What the heck was going on, I thought. Then it let out the scariest, earth-shaking and eardrum-piercing scream. I heard it picking up the goat, and it opened its mouth. I could tell that by the smell that appeared out of nowhere, the smell of rotting flesh. I heard him chew a couple of times, and then it came over to me. The creature picked me up. It was strong. It felt like my body would snap in half. I was shaking and started to panic. I opened my eyes and saw its face. It was monstrous. A goat's head with horns that were snapped roughly in half. It had sharp teeth and yellow eyes that were looking directly in my soul. I screamed. I started to wiggle, and then I fell to the ground. It screamed. I started to run back to the house. As I ran, I looked back, and the creature was just standing at the site of the sacrifice. Then it started running towards me. I ran for my life. I tripped a couple of times, but got back up. It was a life or death situation. I tripped once more, and I broke my ankle when I fell, and it hurt like hell. It felt like I couldn't run anymore, but I had to. I was exhausted and ready to give up, but finally, I reached my house, got in, and locked the door. Then I went and grabbed my shotgun and looked out the window. Kirek was standing outside at the edge of the woods. I couldn't see him properly, but the outline was there. I decided that it was time to go. I started packing, and when I was ready, it was already morning. I packed my bags in the truck, took all the animals that could fit in the truck, and said goodbyes to the property. I couldn't handle this anymore. As I was saying goodbyes to the property, I found a goat's head sitting in front of the garage. I took it as a warning that I had forgotten to make the sacrifices for it. A warning that said, "You're next." I went to my truck and drove off. I couldn't stop thinking about last night, and as I turned to the road that took me away from there, I saw a goat that was placed on a tree branch. It was impaled by the branch, and it was definitely placed there by Kirek. I felt horrible as I thought, can I even escape? It was clearly following me, and that full body of a goat impaled by a tree. This definitely meant that I was next. 6 years later, after what happened in my family home, I moved as far away from there as I could, about 800 miles away. I never wanted to see or hear about Kirek again, but someone didn't agree with that. I was making myself a late-night snack when I noticed 2 glowing eyes in the forest. A deer, I thought, and continued making the sandwiches. Being really hungry, I made 4 peanut butter and jam sandwiches and sat on the dinner table to eat them. While eating, I saw the glowing eyes again, but a little bit closer. They were high up, too high for a deer. My mind started racing, and I got this feeling I hadn't felt in years. It must have been the creature. I went outside to check it out, but it was already long gone. Didn't leave any tracks. Next morning, I found out that my neighbor had seen it as well, or at least my neighbor's description matched Kirek completely. "Yo, man, did you see anything weird last night?" he asked while taking the mail. "What do you mean by weird?" I asked back because I didn't want to seem crazy. "Something big and scary. It had glowing eyes and some kind of horns," he replied. That's when I knew the creature was back to take me. It was back to cause me harm and remind me of the forgotten sacrifices. That day, I prepared to face Kirek again. I got all the memories from the earlier experience flooding back. The goat that was torn apart in my yard, and the goat placed on the tree branch. Both of those memories made me anxious and made me want to move again, but this time, I decided to fight it. I figured that Kirek would bother me for the rest of my life, or at least for how long it was alive. Kirek wouldn't forget the missed sacrifices. Later, I went to a hardware store and bought some planks, nails, and screws. I chose to build a so-called hunting tower in a tree close to my house. That way, I could scout and spy on Kirek's moves and maybe even slay it from above. I was nearly done when the sun started to set. I had a couple more planks to attach before the tower was ready. That's when I heard some leaves crunching and a human screaming. From the woods ran my neighbor as fast as he could. He ran straight inside and didn't see me. The creature was there, I figured. It was already pretty dark when I finished the hunting tower. I climbed down and went inside. Today was not the day to go out there. I still had some preparing to do. Next morning, I woke up and had to go buy a crossbow and some arrows. In my country, a crossbow doesn't need a permit or anything, and I thought it would be perfect, since it doesn't make a huge sound. After coming home from the store, I prepared a blanket and took a foldable stair to my hideout in the tree. I made it so that I could spend the whole night there and be comfortable. Before sunset, I made a couple sandwiches to go and load it up on water. Also grabbed a couple of Snickers bars from my drawer just in case. Climbing up the ladder to my hideout, I got goosebumps and immediately realized that something was wrong. I had this feeling of unease and anxiety. The creature's monstrous face kept flashing in my mind. The horrible image of a creature with snapped horns, rotten teeth, glowing yellow eyes, and the smell. The smell of that monster was disgusting, and it smelled rotten. I was looking around from my hideout and kept hearing wolves howling in the distance. There were also a couple of deer that ran past, but nothing major. The place I was in was maybe 2 meters to every direction. There was a foldable chair in the corner, an air mattress in the middle with a blanket and 2 pillows. There was my backpack beside that mattress that had a flashlight, a camera, my food, and a knife. About 2 hours went by without anything interesting, but all of a sudden, I heard leaves crackling and something walking in the forest. Its footsteps sounded loud and like it was heavy. Then it screamed. It was Kirek. Immediately, I recognized its voice, and then I was paralyzed. I was lucky that I had crafted the hunting tower pretty high. I slowly crawled towards my backpack and snatched the camera and knife from there. My crossbow was already close to my looking spot. Kirek shrieked a couple of times while I was getting the camera. When I crawled back to that chair, the plank underneath my foot creaked. I sat on the chair and peeked down. I saw Kirek there, and he was looking straight at me. It had the same yellow eyes and cracked horns, but it looked older. It looked really, really tired and like he was starving. Then I heard my neighbor's voice. "Come down. There is nothing wrong down here." It was the creature, and it mimicked my neighbor's voice. It was much slimmer than earlier. I felt a bit sad because I left it there, but that went away quickly when I remembered what that thing really was. A monster. Kirek looked at me for a while and then bolted. It was still pretty fast, but slower than before. I figured that it was slowly dying. At our old home, there was no one to feed him. That was the only sighting of it that night. I stayed up there for the rest of the night anyway. In the morning, I came down, and my neighbor was outside doing yard work. "Hello, how are you doing?" I asked. "Fine. Did you know that there is some creature in these woods?" "My wife and I have seen it twice," he told me. "Yes, I saw it too just last night," I told him. I then asked if he knew what it was. I did, but more information would be nice. He told me that it was probably a Wendigo or something, but I didn't believe him. Later, I did some research on the creature. In between these stories, the internet has gotten better, and I wanted to see if there would be some information about it. I found out that Kirek is probably an old spirit, but has taken the form of a Wendigo. The page also said that this type of spirit is born from tragic events happening in a person's bloodline, making the bloodline cursed. The spirit senses pain and suffering, and those things attract it. It starts feasting on that pain and suffering, but those things are not enough to satisfy its hunger. It needs something inside its stomach. There was also an article of how these curses can be lifted, but the method may be very demanding on your mind and body. First, you need to find out what is the reason your bloodline is cursed. Then you have to find the object tied to that event. After you have located the object, you need to burn it in a campfire and scatter some silver dust on it. Reading that page sent shivers down my spine. I had to try and lift a curse that someone in my bloodline accidentally made. I had some books left from my old family house, as I quickly took the ones that looked more important. I went through them, and I almost gave up. But the last book I opened was interesting. There was the same Kirek notepad and book. I had forgotten how old the book looked. This time, I had to read it thoroughly. I found out that my great-grandfather had to kill their dog because it went crazy and chewed their 1-year-old son. That was the tragic event that brought this all. My family even knew how the creature was tied to us, but never informed me about it. I had to go back to my family home and find that knife or the object that the dog was killed with. I found the love of my life, and I thought she was my soulmate. I met my wife a long time ago and thought our life was perfect. That was until I discovered something horrible. So, I was 18 years old at this time of my life, and I wanted to marry someone really badly. I went to bars a lot to search for a woman suitable for me. I wanted a loving, caring, and motherly woman who would care for our kids. I wanted to have at least 2 children. So one night, I went to this bar. I believe it was called Craig's Bar and Restaurant. It was a nice, small, and cozy place where you could drink in peace and have good conversations with people without the music being too loud. There were people dancing on the dance floor. Then I spotted this beautiful woman. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She had long hair that was a deep red color, amazing facial features, and an astonishing body. I felt butterflies. I got nervous as I realized that I had to go talk to her. I shook off the nerves and approached her. "Hey, what's up?" I started casually. Her answer took a while, but then she said, "Nothing much, just vibing." I could feel that she found me attractive. "Want to grab a drink with me?" I asked. Took a lot of courage to get those words out, but I was glad I did. "Sure." We walked to the bar counter and I ordered a beer, and she ordered a cider. After that, we got ourselves a table and sat down. We talked about life and about everything. I fell in love. I could feel we had good chemistry, and I asked for her number, but she insisted that I'd spend the night at her place, and so I did. Nothing sexual happened, but we slept in the same bed, and the conversation that started at the bar didn't end until we fell asleep. Her name was Roseanne, and she had really beautiful green eyes I couldn't see at the bar. They almost looked like they belonged to a snake. The next morning, I woke up feeling like shit. "Hey, you're up!" she yelled all excitedly. I flinched as I thought I was home alone. "Hey, you scared me," I told her, and barely got a word out as my mouth was so dry. "Did you sleep well?" I asked. "Yep," she told me, and went to the kitchen. She came back in 15 minutes and brought me breakfast to bed. "Oh, nice. Thank you so much," I said to her, while giggling like a little kid. "I love cooking, and I thought you deserved a homemade breakfast," she answered and blushed. So we spent the whole day in bed, and I spent another night there. The next day, I went home and talked to her on the phone. Actually, after those 2 nights spent there, I called her every day. We usually talked for a couple of hours and got to know each other so well. We also went on dates every other weekend. She was perfect for me. I wanted her to be my wife and soulmate for the rest of my life. I was also perfect for her, or so I thought. It felt so sudden. How could I fall in love so quickly? A year goes by, and it was awesome. I proposed, and we got married. The wedding was small and modest. We invited only a handful of people, and it went really well. It was simple but effective. At one point, my wife disappeared and came back hours later. It was weird and a bit rude to the guests. Her dad came to me at one point and said, "Where is Roseanne? She always disappears at the worst moments." Whatever that meant. She seemed completely normal after she was back. At one point, though, I was sure I saw her pick up a frog and put it in her pocket. What is she going to do with that? I thought, but left it at that. I figured she was just drunk and wanted to prank me, as I was pretty drunk too. I can't even remember anything after that. The wedding was perfect. A month later, we were out eating at a restaurant. "How do you feel about having kids?" I asked. I had been thinking of having kids for 6 months, and she would make the perfect mother. "I don't like kids. They are loud and they smell," she answered. "Have you thought about us having kids? I would love to have at least one," I told her all excitedly. "No, my darling. I don't think that is such a good idea," she told me. I was dumbfounded. "What do you mean?" I asked. She told me that she can't be around kids for some reason, but I deserved them, and someday she would be ready. The woman I married didn't want kids with me. Why? We left the conversation at that. I kept thinking about it for a couple of weeks, but figured out she would tell me when she was ready for kids. After that night, she woke me up by bringing me breakfast. "Good morning, my handsome prince," she said, and gave me a plate full of eggs, bacon, and beans. "That was really kind of you, my dear," I told her, while smiling very widely. She always made me breakfast on the weekends. It was the best. The next week, my wife disappeared again. It was Saturday, and we watched a movie on our couch. Suddenly, she leaves in a hurry, and the weirdest thing is that she didn't even say anything. She just left. She came back 3 hours later. It was almost midnight, and that was weird. I was just watching the movie alone when all of a sudden I heard, "Babe, want to go upstairs?" I jumped so high that I hit my head on the lamp. "Whoa, where did you go?" I asked, while visibly annoyed. "Don't worry about it, my darling," she calmly told me. I did not go upstairs with her that night, as I was pretty mad at her for leaving during the date night we had planned. I slept on the couch that night, and I reconsidered our relationship the whole night. I kept debating with myself about whether I should stay or leave, as this was deeply unsettling. It was a huge red flag. I had thoughts about her cheating on me, but I married her, so I trusted her, and it was just a passing thought. The next week, a similar thing happened. We were supposed to go eat dinner at a restaurant. I had reserved a table at a very high-end restaurant. I was excited because I saved a lot of money for this specific date night. As we are leaving to the restaurant, she says, "I need to use the bathroom. Go start the car." I do just that, and around 15 minutes go by. I began to wonder, where is she? How is she taking so long? I waited another 15 minutes. Nothing. She didn't come back, so I decided to go check out what is going on, and why is she taking so long? I went inside and walked upstairs to our bedroom. I thought she would be there putting on more makeup or doing some finishing touches, maybe even doing her hair over and over. I walk in, and she's not there. Only thing I see are her clothes on the floor. The same clothes she was supposed to put on for our date. Why are these on the floor? I thought. It was bizarre that she would do this on our date night, and it was not the first time either. I started to look around the house, but she was nowhere to be seen. I walk in the kitchen, and I hear this weird hissing sound coming from under me. The basement? Why would she be there? There was nothing in there, and no reason for her to go inside the basement. I walked the stairs to the basement, and it was dark. It also smelled really funky. It was very warm and humid there. That was not the case earlier. Then I hear some movement behind me and look over there. It's dark, but I have a flashlight, so I turn it on. It hissed at me. The half-snake, half-woman hissed at me. "What the heck?" I yelled at the monster who turned out to be my wife. The puzzle just clicked, and that's where she always disappeared to. "Don't look at me," she said with this raspy, snake-like voice. "How could you hide this from me?" I asked, while getting angry at her for hiding this. "I thought you would leave me if you knew," she told me. "Is there a way out of this? Is this a curse?" I wanted to figure out how this was even possible. "It's a curse that can't be lifted," she answered. "I can't be saved. Please kill me and stop this madness," Roseanne said while starting to weep. I thought about it for a while. She returned to human form, and we talked this through. She did not want to live anymore, because every time she turned into a snake. She got this hunger for human souls, and she told me she prefers to feast on younger people as their souls are more pure than grown humans. I had to think about the situation and what could be done. Every night, I had these nightmares of her stealing children and feasting on their souls. It was terrifying to think about. I kept going back and forth between killing her and helping her. You are thinking, why would he help her? I know it sounds bad, but I got that idea because she was perfect. We had a nice relationship and I never had to worry about anything after coming home from work. She kept the house clean and made me dinner. I couldn't make my decision then and there. I needed to think it through. One day we talked about the situation on our hands, and she told me how and why she was cursed. She told me that when she was younger, her parents were homeless and wanted to get stability in their lives. They found this mysterious ad on a lamppost, and it was about some shaman helping people get what they want. So her parents went to visit that shaman, and they got an offer. They would get everything they ever wanted, but it would cost them their first 10,000 euros. It was clear the money had to be their first 10,000 ever. They accepted, but didn't know what would happen if they didn't pay him. She told me that because they were homeless. After they got the money, they totally forgot that deal made with the shaman. The shaman never told them what would happen if they would not pay him. Soon, they found out. As her mother gave birth to my wife, she was healthy and all was well. But by the time she turned 5, she would turn into this half-snake, half-human form. Her parents did not know what to do. It was not natural, and so they remembered the shaman who helped them out of poverty. As they visited the shaman, he told them that it was too late to do anything and it was all their fault for not following their deal. My wife got cursed by that shaman because her parents forgot to pay him. Hearing this made me want to help her even more. She did not cause this and deserved a good life. A good life that was ruined by her parents' actions. One day, exactly 5 days after what happened, I was walking on the street, and I saw this poster of a shaman offering spiritual readings. I got an idea and went to visit that shaman as soon as I could. I located his cottage, which was a little hard to find, but I managed to find it. I knocked on the door. He opened the door, and he looked old, really old. He looked like he was over 90 years old. I then asked him about the situation, and he told me that he was the shaman who helped those homeless people. He also told me the same story my wife did, and that gave me a little bit of hope. He spoke very calmly and was not one bit angry. He told me that there could be a cure, but he had to check from some book, so I waited. 30 minutes go by and he comes back. I can feel that the thing he found is not good. There is no cure or any way to reverse this, he told me. He also said that it was a strong curse because they had made a deal. Once the parents and the shaman both agreed her fate was set. That felt so wrong. I had so much hope in me. That was all for nothing. I still decided to stay with her and not let her die. It was not an option. Before leaving the shaman's hut, he said something weird. A person's love is the only thing capable of removing something this horrifying. I didn't answer and just left. I walked back home feeling pretty low. I could not get that sadness to go away. It was a 15-minute walk, and I kept thinking about what would happen and how we could cure her. I got to the front door and opened it. The house was really quiet, no sounds at all. "Roseanne," I shouted, but no answer. I walked up to our bedroom, and there she was. She was laying on the bed, and there was blood all over her. I started to cry as I realized she had done what I couldn't. There was a note beside her, and I read that. In that note, she told me how much she loved me and how great I was. She also apologized for doing this, but she could not endanger anyone anymore. She also told me that we would get married in the next life. I read it, and with each word I cried louder. I just kept having these flashbacks of all the good things we did together. All the late-night walks, dancing at our wedding, dreaming about moving to another country, and all the late-night laughs we had before falling asleep together. I lost everything that night. I lost her, the brightest light in this world of darkness. I still have her clothes in my closet, and I still can't let go.